Good, Billy. Go ahead. All right, guys. I want to welcome Jimmy Yacabonis in. He's going to spend a little time with us right now on our baseball session tonight. Jimmy is a pitcher with the San Diego Padres. He's been a big leaguer with the Baltimore Orioles. He is a guy who grew up in New Jersey, spent his time locally right by us in the Mattawan area. Christian Brothers Academy high school pitcher. Also went on to perform and play and pitch very well at St. Joseph's University, and then on into his professional career. So we want to welcome Jimmy in. We're going to talk some baseball. We're going to talk a little life, a little timeline of the road you've traveled, and take us right through for probably about another 45 minutes and have a fun session with us tonight. So Jimmy, welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Jimmy, talk to us a little bit about, take us back to where you were in the ages between 10, 11, 12 years old, where it started, where you're just before you get to the 90-foot diamond. Where did that happen for you?
So I grew up in Mattawan, New Jersey, which is like the northern tip of like Monmouth County. It's getting close to like Middlesex County. So I'm close to like Old Bridge, Woodbridge area. Growing up, I just played like Babe Ruth baseball, just rec baseball. I was always pretty athletic, and I was always into like a lot of sports. So when I was a young kid, I didn't really specialize in any sports specifically. I played soccer, basketball, pretty much anything I can get my hands on, like backyard sports, literally anything. So I would say at those young ages, yeah, baseball is important, and playing like in an organized league would be important for your development and whatnot. But I wouldn't say specializing in baseball at a young age is something that you really need to do. And like when I was young, I just tried to stay athletic and just try to stay active all the time. And I mean, as a young kid, you have a lot of energy. So I'd say through the ages of 10 and 12, just played some rec ball, maybe made like an all-star team or something like in the rec league, and played like that kind of ball. Never played travel ball till I was like on the 60, 90 down.
So for you, grade school and, going 7th and 8th grade, that middle school age, you were at St. Benedict's in Homedale?
Yeah, St. Benedict's in Homedale, kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. I went there for a lot of years, and it was a small group of kids, so it was good. We had athletic kids like in that class too, so it was pretty competitive, and it was a really good school. Taught me a lot, and a lot of values. It's a good school.
Yeah, it's a good place that you remember, and from what I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know you went back and talked to the kids there recently.
Yeah, we did like a big like Q&A. It was like two 40-minute sessions. I went in there and we went to the church, and they sat down the kindergarten. It was like kindergarten through 3rd grade, kind of like the lower age group. So that was kind of more like laughing and joking, like talking about just like little stories and stuff, trying to make them laugh. And I talked to the older kids going into high school. We talked about like making the right decision based on what the right school for you is, and your future, not going where like your friends are going to school and whatnot. So it was a really good talk.
So that's a good point where you just said talking about their future and making a decision where they may go to high school, because obviously St. Benedict, the private Catholic school. How did that come for you with your decision? You ended up at Christian Brothers.
Yeah, so St. Benedict's actually almost shares property with St. John Vianney, which is a pretty good high school in the same area. So a lot of my friends were going to St. John Vianney. My grammar school was co-ed, so a lot of the girls and a lot of the guys were all going to St. John. So of course, like initially, I was like, yeah, I want to go to St. John Vianney. I want to be like everyone else, I want to be part of the groups and go to all the parties and whatnot. But I realized that CBA was the right decision for me with academics and sports and whatnot. So I made that decision, and I think it was one of the better decisions I ever made.
Good for you. To look back at it now and know that, you felt like you made a good choice,
Yeah, going through those times in high school, I just want to say, like, going through those times, like, that transition period is really tough for a lot of guys. And, like, just making sure you stay confident in yourself and in your decision. And then even if you have to switch schools or something, don't get down on yourself. Everybody has to have experiments in life, and you learn things from different experiences. So if you don't fit in a certain group, that doesn't mean you're not going to fit into another group.
Now, talk about the field over there. Now, St. Benedict's, when you're in the 8th grade, are you pitching on that team? Were you a pitcher at that point?
Yeah, I did pitch. that was like the first, because like when you get into sixth grade there's a big discrepancy between a sixth grader and an eighth grader. You know, it's between 12 and 14 years old. So the 14-year-olds and the guys that some guys are even 15 by the time they're in eighth grade, you know, going into their freshman year of high school. Those guys have an advantage on the 60-90 field. So I noticed as I was getting older at St. Benedict's from sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, I started to throw harder and get bigger and be able to like actually like be able to pitch from the 60-foot mound. When I first had gotten onto the 60-90 field at St. Ben's as a sixth grader, it was really hard to pitch at that level. And I mean, I think the transition between going to that 50-70, I played a little bit of 50-70 ball too. I think that transition really helps guys too at the young ages.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We have two that I can think of right now, and I possibly one or both are on the call right now. Unfortunately, as you know, the youth level guys and the high school guys, their season is shut down right now in New Jersey. Any school that they're doing right now is virtual and online. But we have Zach Penley, who's a seventh grade catcher infielder, and Sal Tantillo, who's an eighth grade infielder pitcher. Both St. Benedict's guys. They're both St. Ben's guys like you, and they were expected to be the battery in the lineup for them this spring. You know, now Sal, who's the eighth grader, he was fortunate to get a pretty good score to be accepted to CBA, so he's heading there too. Wow. So they're both probably guys. I would say they're both probably guys that got to hear you speak when you came over there.
Cool.
Yeah. So now let's go into the CBA time. Let's do a little timeline with CBA. You had a chance to play for Coach Kenny, play on some very good teams. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got to CBA, I kind of wanted to do both. I wanted to be a position player and a pitcher, and I kind of got in there, and I was just kind of deemed a pitcher just because of how good of an arm I had and whatnot. So they kind of just tried to transform me into a pitcher, right from the second I got there. And I'm not gonna lie, from the beginning, going in there freshman year and sitting on the freshman bench and just pitching and watching all the other guys get chances to hit and whatnot, was kind of discouraging. But I mean, I just kind of battled through it and had confidence in myself to keep working. I think a lot of the things too at CBA that helped me with like when I would struggle with like certain sports and stuff too was a lot. You create a lot of like friendships, a lot of friend groups in high school. So I feel like leaning back and falling upon your friends when you struggle in sports is huge. And like when I first got to CBA, it was hard. Not that it was hard to fit in, but it was different. You just have to act. It was like the first year is just different. It's really different from what you're used to. So just getting used to that and meeting friends and seeing who you fit in with and whatnot. But then after my freshman year at CBA, I really started to take off. My sophomore year, I had a really good year. I came in throwing harder. I had a really good year. I played basketball at CBA too, so I had a really good year playing basketball, staying in really good shape in the winter. Came in, was throwing harder, ended up making the varsity team as a sophomore at CBA, and then I played varsity sophomore, junior, and senior year. Our junior year was our best year. We ended up winning the states. That's when we had like Pat Light as a senior. We had Cirillo at short, Avella at third. We had a really good team, and we ended up winning the states my junior year. So it was an awesome career at CBA, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was a hell of an experience.
Good experience. Good to hear you say those things. And we've been talking.
Yeah. I was gonna say everybody thinks like it's just an easy road, especially for guys that make it. Like everyone thinks it's an easy road just because I have the talent to do to get to the level that I made it to. But there's a lot of struggles that came along the way, and the first one that hit me in the face was my freshman year in high school. So those struggles everybody facing those struggles. So don't get discouraged by those struggles.
I think, so much is always talked about and so much is worked on the physical aspects of the game and not on the mental aspects. And it's the mental side that's where we have we got to come through everything mentally, and adversity gets to us,
100%. I mean, one of the best coaches I ever had growing up, his name's Dave Gallagher. I don't know if any of the guys on the call know who he is or played for him. I'm sure you know who he is, Jay. Yeah. But I played for him growing up, and he told me, he played 9 years in the big leagues or 10 years. I don't want to sell him short, but he played a lot of years in the big leagues and played for a lot of different teams. And the first thing he told me was, never root bad for people that are on your team. Like never hope bad that someone ahead of you in your position is going to do bad so that you get the opportunity. always root for your team to do well, because then that means when you get in there, you're going to have the chance to succeed. You're not going to have that negative energy upon yourself. So baseball is a team sport, and I know sometimes riding the bench isn't fun, but sometimes guys have to do it, and that's something that you gotta realize that it's a team sport, and you gotta put the team before yourself. So that was one of the biggest things that I realized from him. When you're able to get out of your own mind and stop worrying about yourself when it comes to the team, then you're really, your ability will start to truly come out.
Tell us a little bit about what you might be doing, not baseball related. Some of our guests have been, they've been reading books they never read before. They're learning how to cook. They're playing video games they don't usually play, those kind of things. What are you doing in Arizona?
I'll play some video games. I like to read some books here and there, just like baseball mind books. I've actually been doing a lot of research on like the mechanics of pitching and like arm motion. I think that one of the best guys out there right now on YouTube is Trevor Bauer. If you guys are pitchers and really want to understand the body mechanics of the lower half and upper half and sinking the halves and whatnot, I think Trevor Bauer, doing research on Trevor Bauer's channel on YouTube, I think that's the best one out there so far. And also Tread Athletics. Tread Athletics and Trevor Bauer are the two. And don't get confused or try to change too much or try to dive in. There's a lot of information out there, so kind of just play with stuff, see what works for you, and go from there. But I mean, from the baseball aspect and like not actually physically doing stuff, I've been doing research on that. I've been hiking a little bit. I think later in this week I'm gonna try to get out to the Grand Canyon. It's about 4 hours away. I went to Sedona, which is like the Red Rocks. That was pretty cool. There's a lot of places in Arizona because it's kind of like the city of Phoenix is kind of just like centrally located. So then all outside of there is just all trails and hiking areas to go to and whatnot. So I've been doing a lot of hiking.
Yeah, I can imagine, during spring training, if you're in Arizona during spring training, you've got a routine and you've got to be there every day going through those routines. You don't have time to go see what Arizona is really like, This is actually a little bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little mini vacation, but I mean, I still wish I was playing.
That's right. You still wish you were getting somebody out, You want to be out there on a mountain.
Yep.
So you leave CBA, and then it starts over again. Now you become a freshman at St. Joseph's in Pennsylvania. So then it starts over, and what I mean by starts over, like when you left St. Ben's to go to CBA. What was that like, heading off, where you went to St. Joe's, probably hour and 45-minute ride to school from home?
Yeah, I mean, St. Joe's, I got there freshman year, and my coach had actually come over from Army. So he was the assistant pitching coach at Army, and he was extremely strict. He's like, as I got older at St. Joe's and I went through my years in St. Joe's, he's starting to lighten up, and he became a more personal coach, more of a player's coach. But when he had first got there, he was very, very, very strict. I remember one time one of the freshmen in our class wore a hat to class, like a baseball fitted hat, and he called us all out to the turf at like 4:30, and we ran I think 8 miles as a freshman class. There was like 8 of us in the freshman class. We ran like 8 miles. It was like a torture day. So when I first got there, it was a really harsh awakening, and as to what the college life is like, and it really is like having 2 jobs. You got to do school and you got to do sports. So it's I think the biggest thing I would recommend to guys like that are going into college and that are in college right now is time management and discipline. If you can avoid going out to the bar with your friends or going out to a party or something and get something done for yourself that is going to benefit you later in the week, and you can portion that time off to have your liberty to go out and have fun. I'm not saying you don't go out and have fun. You want to go out and have fun, but make sure you portion it off right, and that doesn't become number one in your life. I'd say that's the biggest thing, because when you get to college, like when I got to college too, it's complete freedom. Most of these guys are living underneath their parents' roofs while you're in high school. When you go to college, and it is complete freedom. You're getting influenced by people in your class, people you interact with, older kids that are on campus. So I mean, I just say discipline and time management are the 2 most important things when you first get to college.
How about guys that you played with at St. Joe's that are still close to you? Like obviously your incoming class, the freshman, when you're a freshman and you're heading off to play pro ball with the Orioles, and now you're not going to see those teammates anymore. How much contact do you still have with them? What is it like with that?
I mean, the beauty of that is now with social media and whatnot, we have group Snapchat, we have group Instagram. There's all group chats all over the place. So I mean, we stay in contact through group chat mostly. Our coach has actually been doing a really good job of reaching back out to the alumni for donations and like kind of giving back to the university during this whole coronavirus pandemic. Like they've really been doing a good job of reaching out to guys and having guys help out with the community around there in West Philadelphia, right where the campus is. So. I mean, we have a really tight-knit community there, and we actually do like a lead-off dinner every year. They host it in Philly. It's usually at the beginning of February, the end of January. And one of my best buddies, he was a class ahead of me, he actually broke all of Jamie Morgan's records in St. Joe's, and they had like a dinner, and they inducted him to the Hall of Fame. So we actually all met up there. I think it was like January 24th this past year. So we keep in contact, and most of the guys stay in that little area. So it's pretty cool.
You know, you're one of the guys that has been on that has said exactly like that in similar words of how that becomes your family for life, even if you're not in the same town as those guys, you're not in the same state, you know, wherever you may be, you never lose that bond with that group of guys, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. I was at a game here actually in spring training. I wasn't pitching. I had a down day, so I had to sit in the dugout for four or 5 innings. And I'm walking out, and one of my buddies, I had played with him for maybe 1 or 2 years at St. Joe's. He lives in California, and he would just happen to be there. He was just there watching a game. He grabbed me. I ended up saying hi to him. So he was there with his parents and stuff, and they said they like wished my parents well. So it's cool. It's a small world, and you never know who you're gonna run into. And those guys are my family for life. Whether I played with one guy for 1 year or 2 years or whatever, those guys are family for life.
It's good to hear you had a good experience there too, you know, at St. Joe's.
Absolutely, yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. Also, like like I was very fortunate to get drafted by the Orioles and be in like this centrally located area of the Mid Atlantic. Like a lot of the teams, like the minor league teams and the major league teams, are within this band, like within this like 3 hour like area. So a lot of the guys were able to come out to games. I think I had like maybe 10 of my college teammates at my debut. So there's been a lot of support, and I really appreciate all those guys out there.
Yeah, it sounds like you got to put a lot of names on that guest ticket list, on a pass list.
Yeah, there's a ton.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so tell us about the day you got called up to the big leagues. You know, you're in high A, you're in double A, you're in triple A. Where you at that point, and who tells you? Your manager? Who lets you know?
So in 2016, I had a breakout year. I was in Double A, and I thought there was talks of me maybe getting called and added to the 40-man for September that year. But if you guys remember that year, the Orioles were making a push to make the playoffs. That was the year when Ubaldo gave the home run to Edwin Encarnacion, and Buck got ripped apart for not putting Zach Britton in. That was like the year I had a breakout year in Double A. So I was on the verge of getting called up. They decided not to call me up and then send me to the Fall League. I went to the Fall League, had a pretty good year in Arizona Fall League, got home around December. They didn't protect me from the Rule 5 draft, so I went to camp as a non-roster invitee. Went to camp, got sent to AAA. Went to AAA for April, May, and then the team needed pitching, so they had called me up, and we were in Durham, North Carolina. We had just got finished with a game. And the AAA coach had told me, he's like, hey, keep your phone on. He's like, there's a good chance you get called up. I was pitching really well in AAA. And I'm sitting in my hotel room. It's about 12:30 at night. And I get a ring on my phone. And it's my manager, my AAA manager. He's like, hey, you're going up to the big leagues. And I'm just like in utter shock, utter panic. Because it's a 1 o'clock game the next day on a Sunday in New York. So, like, it's 12:30 in North Carolina. I got to be there for 1 p.m. the next day. And I'm probably going to pitch in the game. So, I mean, I'm freaking out. I'm calling everybody I know. I got about 30 minutes of sleep. Yeah, it was pretty nerve-wracking.
It's got to be a great feeling, though, you know? You just...
Oh, yeah. It's like butter. It's like every butterfly you've ever had times a million.
That's great.
It's fun.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the technical side of the game. And, you know, you're obviously a guy who comes out of the pen, right? So how do you prepare yourself during the winter, like this past winter, to get ready for spring training? Maybe when did you start? How do you ramp up? When do you ramp up? You were back here, you know, just on.
Yeah, so I was back in Philadelphia this off season. That's where I trained. I trained down there in Philly. It's like 30 minutes outside of where I went to college. I found a good training facility down there. It's called Maple Zone Institute. My agent actually is a part owner of the place, so that's how I got like hooked up with the place, and it's been good. And so when I go there, mainly at the beginning of the off season, I try to think of it more of like a bulk phase, and I try to put on weight. So like that first like September is I'm usually pitching in September, so October will be the bulk phase. I try to do as much weight as I can and try to move it as fast as I can for about a month. And I have a trainer there, so he writes programs for me. So I don't really come up with my own list. He kind of writes my own list and like my warm ups and my mobility and all that. And then so this year was a little bit different since I wanted to like change my arm path a little bit. I started to do weighted balls in October, and usually I don't pick up a ball till like the end of November. So I just did some weighted ball stuff, no baseball stuff till like the end of November. Like that first 2 month span, maybe like 6 week, 8 week span, you really want to be able to put muscle on and put some like get your legs underneath you pretty much. You want to like build that foundation so that by the time the season rolls around and it's August and like that following year it's August and it rolls around, your legs aren't shot. You know what I mean? You're able to through the season, you're able to maintain that strength, that foundation of strength you built that first couple months in the off season. So I would say like that foundation of strength is what you have to build that first couple months in the off season after it gets worn down from the season the year before. And then going further, obviously, you like start to develop a throwing program around end of November, December. I usually get off the mound like right around Christmas is my first time off the mound. I try to get like off the mound 8 times before I head to spring training. I'm trying to think, and then so like with the lifting, when what you do with the lifting after you like get that foundation and you do a lot of like heavy lifting, what you want to do is you want to kind of taper that off and kind of start to do lighter weight and move it faster. So you want to do like baseball type movements with lighter weights, so that those small muscles that you were building all off season start to fire. And that's when people start talking about like your mid season form. Those small muscles or something in your body. That's where you start to get ready when you go into spring training, and that's what like really peaks in mid season. So I would say beginning of the off season, foundation strength, and then second half of the off season, more speed and agility and quickness.
That's great, man.
Yeah, that's kind of how we build it for most. And every guy's different. Every guy moves different. So but that's just that's the basics of it.
Yeah. You know, like these guys, obviously they're anywhere probably from 13 to 17, 18 years old. So the journey that they're on, the timeline might be a little bit different than you. And, you know, the same for them, just trying to build the endurance, especially obviously we're talking about pitching, the endurance in their legs for that long run. If they're going to be a middle school guy and then play in, you know, whether it's a league or tournaments going right through the summer, take a little break, and then they start off in the fall again. So, you know, their calendar is a little bit different as far as downtime, but, you know, we so truly believe in the pitchers shutting their arms down, and, you know, they should be going the whole year. I mean, it's been so many guys seen with injuries just on, you know, young arms who aren't even developed. Some of these guys haven't reached puberty yet, and they're throwing, you know, 100 innings in a year. You know, makes no sense.
Yeah, that's not right.
Yeah. So, what do you have as far as for you guys? Like, you know, obviously you're in Padres, new organization for you, right?
Yeah.
You know, as far as what that might come from, whether it be the medical side, the athletic trainer on the medical side, or the physical side, just on you as far as when you pick up a baseball and, you know, where you were at the end of the year. So whether that's October, you know, and how much time down that you don't pick the ball up until a certain day.
Yeah, so with Baltimore, they were kind of like it was I don't want to say it was more structured, but they had just known me more, so they had more of like a scheduled throwing program for me. Since I went to San Diego, it was kind of like a new thing, so it's kind of like they kind of want to let me feel out what worked for me first. And so like during the off season, I pretty much maintained my own like throwing program. I worked with the Padres a little bit. They would send me stuff that I would need to do, like certain like just quota I would need to reach by certain weeks. And then it was kind of like on my own because I had been around for long enough and I had done this. I've been through that was my 8th off season, so I'd been through it enough to the point where I knew what I had to do to be ready. But yeah, when you're like younger and you first get drafted, like they put you through a pretty strict like throwing frame program, like protocol and whatnot, just to make sure like you know what you're doing. Like you're not just going there and you're throwing as hard as you can the first day you get out there. So I mean, it all depends on like what age you're at. And now I'm getting to the age where it's kind of like I can do it on my own. You know, it's not like I really need a throwing program to kind of like I know my body. So it's kind of those guys that are kind of still learning their body and kind of have those holds from like the organization on them about like innings limits and stuff like that, trying to prevent younger guys from getting hurt. So for me, it's more about just personally knowing my body and how to get ready for my body.
Well, for you also too. Now you've had the last few years that you're in big league camp, and that would be different than the minor league camp, and even on the timeline, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in big league camp, there's more access to tools and to stuff that's going to help you, like technology wise. Like that's just the nature of the beast. Major leagues they're just going to have more resources. So I mean, being in major league camp definitely helps you with recovery. Like from the recovery standpoint too, there's more resources everywhere, and they're nicer, and it's just the way it is. But yeah, that's definitely a factor being in big league camp opposed to minor league camp.
I'm looking at the message board, the chat board. We use that for some questions, and we also call upon some guys. I got two of my younger catchers on. I know they have some questions. Billy, if you could unmute David Larson. I know David, I think, has a question that relates to the catchers. I think he's on here. Yeah, David's on. We can unmute David and see if he's got something. Go to him. Let's see.
Hello?
There he is. David, is that you? Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead, buddy.
So, I was wondering, what do you need from your catchers to, help you? Anything in particular?
I mean, the best catchers I've ever had, when playing. If you're a catcher and you really want to help your pitcher out, you want to know what guy is going to bring, what guy is bringing what stuff out of the bullpen. You want to know what certain guys' strengths are and what their weaknesses are, and what to throw certain hitters and when to throw around hitters and when to challenge certain guys. Relievers are a little tougher for catchers because I think that you really have to be around the guys for a while and really get to know them. That's why a lot of catchers catch so many bullpens of their bullpen guys, because they want to know the starting catcher go out there a lot and catch their bullpen guys because they want to know how certain stuff breaks and what's the best pitches and what their strengths are. For a starter, it's a little different. The starter, you have way more time to prep the game, and you have way more. They give you the lineup card ahead of time, so you have time to prep and kind of scout guys and see how you want to attack each guy. Getting back to being on the same page is what I'm getting at is, so if you're on the mound and you're facing a guy that's a bad fastball hitter and you're putting down a curveball and your pitcher's shaking you off and you're on the same page, you're throwing his rhythm off. So being with a pitcher and being on the same page as him, if you have a guy that has a slider bat speed, he's up at the plate, he can't hit a fastball over 85, and your starter throws 88, you're gonna want to prove that he can hit that fastball. So you want to throw the fastball. So being on the same page as your pitcher and knowing his strength, I would say those are the biggest things that really, really, really help a pitcher, keeping in that rhythm and that momentum going.
David, good for you? Good answer?
Yeah, and can I ask him one more thing?
Of course.
Who's the toughest hitter for you to get out in the big leagues?
So in the past couple of years, my toughest two guys have probably been Austin Meadows and Jackie Bradley Jr. Just because I throw a lot of two-seam fastballs. So when I try to overthrow my fastball, it'll run back to the middle of the plate, and for those lefties, that goes right into their barrel. A lot of guys thinks it would be someone from the right-hand side, like a Giancarlo or a Judge. Those guys are pretty intimidating when they get in the box, but for me, I have an advantage against them because my ball's moving in towards them, and then I have a pretty good slider going the other way. Some of those lefties in certain counts, they got me. So I'd say those are the toughest guys to get out. A lefty with that sweepy swing, that two-seam kind of goes right into their barrel. So I've been kind of trying to work on getting it away from that.
Good, Dave.
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent.
No problem.
Very good. Jimmy, what about some of the pitching coaches that you've had and some of the things that you've taken, whether it could be somebody you had in high school, it could be college, it could be pro ball at any level that maybe you've taken with you and still have, to this day? What are
Yeah,
some
for
of
sure.
the things you remember?
It was my first coach in pro ball. His name's Alan Mills. He played a lot of years in the big leagues. Pitched for the
Alan Mills,
Yankees.
yeah,
Pitched for the Yankees. Pitched for the Orioles. He was around for a while. So he's my first coach when I got to pro ball, and he's an awesome guy, and I still keep in contact with him. He's the rookie ball manager for the Orioles now. But yeah, I still keep in contact with him and whatnot. An awesome person and great values, and he taught me a lot about the game and how to be a better person. But one of the first things he told me that I'll remember to like I'm done playing, and I'll tell my kids this, and I'll tell everyone that I know involved in baseball is that when you get to pro ball and it becomes a business, you don't necessarily play for the team that's on your shirt when it's on the front of your shirt when you're in the minor leagues. A lot of the time you have to be hungry for yourself and you play for the name on your back. So you have to kind of try to figure out when you get to pro ball, for those guys that are fortunate enough to get there, is that you have to realize that it's a business, and that like if you let people take advantage of you, they're going to take advantage of you, and you have to make sure you're looking out for the name on your back too. So he told me that was like one of the first things he told me, because when you go from college to pro ball, in college, if you get drafted, you're probably the best player on your team. So everyone's like, oh, this guy's the man. He's the best hitter. He's the best pitcher in our conference. Like, he's the best. And then you get to pro ball, and you're put into a pool of all the guys with the same talent as you. So it's about how to separate yourself from those guys. So hold yourself to a higher standard and looking out for yourself is something that he taught me to do.
That's wonderful. Like, you have those things that we remember, and hopefully it's something that helps us grow in the game because, fortunately for us, we all get a little bit older. But if you're not getting a little bit smarter every year, you get a little bit older, and you're just wasting your time, And, there's a saying that you want to be the smartest guy in the room. And how do you be the smartest guy in the room? Well, you admit to yourself that you know nothing at all.
Exactly.
Well, I'm going to ask
exactly.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say he's been around for a while. He's a guy that's been around a lot of people, and he has a lot of knowledge. So that's another thing too. Like when you start to talk to people and you start to realize who you're talking to in certain situations, like a lot of these young players that are listening on this call, take into consideration how many people has Jay worked with, how many people has Jay talked to, how much does he know, how much experience does he have, how many all the coaches, There's a lot of stuff that people don't realize, and how many people interact with people. Baseball is a small world, so there's a lot of things that people know that might help you out. And don't take anybody for granted, and don't just ignore what people say. Take all the advice you can and filter it and use it to work for what can work for you.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, and it makes me think, because of your connection to the Orioles, it makes me think of Rick Down. Rick Down was Buck Showalter's hitting coach when Buck was with the Yankees, long before the Orioles. And then Rick became the Orioles hitting coach later on. And I want to say with both clubs, and I don't know where the home run numbers are now, but this goes back into the 90s. He was the hitting coach of two teams that had the two most all-time home runs in a season. And he taught me a lot about hitting. He spent time with me. He was a guy from the West Coast, and you remember those people who shared the knowledge with you. And, I've been fortunate to be around so many different, coaches at so many levels that I love sharing, and I love to hear, the different experiences from guys, and especially young guys who are just coming out of college, getting into pro ball, or guys who have been in pro ball for a little bit, what they can share with younger players because they've already done that. You've traveled the road that all these guys are on the phone with a long time ago, Matawan baseball to St. Benedict's to CBA, rolling right along to where you are now, going to continue in your career, You're going to be in the big leagues. Once it resumes, you're looking to win a job again, and you're looking to be successful. And, you're closing in on 100 strikeouts in your career, so that'll be a nice day when you get to 100 too. Right, buddy?
That'll come this year.
Let's talk about grips right now, because we got some pitchers on the call, and this is a big moment. So there you go. That looks like a nice ball with some – oh, look at this. Look at the seams on that. That's beautiful. There we go.
Yeah.
Wish it had some higher seams, but, they're usually –
they're a little low. Major League Ball.
Yeah. So go ahead. Show us, usually you go with, unless you go with both, but a lot of times you like your two-seamer versus your four-seamer, correct?
Yeah, so this is my two-seam. I hold it just straight up on the seams. Thumb is kind of underneath the ball. Something that I noticed with my two-seam for guys that have a lot of like arm side run and whatnot, if you take this thumb and move it up to the side of the ball, it'll give you more run. You'll be able to work the ball into the right hand. It'll give you more lateral. It's called lateral break, they call it now, with all the reps showed and whatnot. It's called lateral break. And it's the same thing the other way with the slider. So that's my two-seamer there. And then if you want to get more depth and make it more of a sinker, all you got to do is just move your thumb underneath the ball. So what happens as you pronate through the ball, you're going to be rolling those fingers over the ball. That's going to give you the sink. Whereas the thumb on the side is going to give you more run, more lateral break. So then with the slider, all you got to do is I take the same ball. I say take the ball and I just move up to this horseshoe. So this horseshoe is where I throw my slider off of. I use my middle finger right here, and I use my pointer finger to brace it, and I thumb it out right there. So with the slider, as I'm coming through it, what I think is that this one is more of like a fastball. So I want to keep my hand behind it and use my middle finger, use both fingers to create that break. So that's like the harder slider. That's more like 88, 89, 87, 86. You're going to be able to rip through more like a fastball and kind of keep that hand behind the ball and rip down through it and keep your fingers in that seam. And then this is more of like the sweeper. This is the one that it actually was on Instagram like last week. I went like viral for Pitchers Nation. But this is the one that was all over that page. So it's a spiked sweep curveball. I throw it similar to like Adam Ottavino's slider. Same thumb grip, same thumb position as the cutter. And basically what you want to do with this is as you're throwing it, you want to hold that hand position. So as you're coming through, you just hold the hand position, and then you just let the fingers do the work. So as you're coming through, the fingers work right over the ball. That's going to give you that sweeping action across the plate. And then this is honestly, I think, I developed this pitch this offseason. I think it's going to be one of my best pitches this offseason. I use it a lot in spring training, my changeup. So in the past, I used to hold it just like my two-seam fastball. I used to hold it right on the seams. And I would notice a lot of times that I would get it out in front. And like when you're changeup, what a lot of pitching coaches will tell you is like you want to get out in front and get that feel. You want to feel it. It's a feel pitch. So I kept feeling it, but I kept doing this. I would get to the front of the ball, and I would go like this. My changeup kept cutting and cutting and cutting. I couldn't get it to be consistent. So I did some camera work this offseason, and all I did was I took my middle finger and I put it inside the seam. So now when I throw the ball, I can feel it come off the middle finger and the ring finger at the same time. So it allows me to stay inside the ball and get more of like that screwball action coming through the zone and keep it consistent. And then it'll work the same way. It'll work the same way with the finger that you throw it. So these two fingers on the outside, my pinky and my pointer finger, these are just bracers. These are doing nothing. These just are literally just holding the ball. It's a very light grip. And so the thumb does the same thing as the sinker with the changeup. So now my finger's inside my middle finger's inside that seam, and my ring finger's right on it. With that thumb, if you go up to the side, you're going to get more lateral break. It's going to let you get to the side of it, and you're going to be able to run it away from a lefty. But if you want to throw it right on right, and you want to throw it to a righty, all you got to do is put your thumb underneath the ball a little bit, and you'll get that depth underneath the barrel, and you'll be able to bury it underneath the righty's barrel, almost like a back foot slider from the lefty. So it's all about thumb placement. It's all about feeling that ball out in front off your fingertips. But I think that using those seams and being able to feel a pronation off a seam, whether it's your slider, because like with the slider here, I'm feeling the pronation inside here, and I'm coming through it. With the changeup, it's the same way, so I'm going the other way. So I think a lot of pitch grips and a lot of stuff that's going to help you with your spin rate and stuff like that. It's all about what feels comfortable on your hand and like how firm you hold the ball too. So those are just some basic pitch grips. I mean, I can answer more questions depending on what guys have questions about on certain things.
Yeah, Jimmy, 2 points, a couple points, but 2 points. One, this is great because we're recording this. We have our own Jersey Giants YouTube channel that we put most of the sessions on, but that's fantastic demonstration. And the good thing about this is that they can hit the pause button and rewind, and they can go right to where it is on the clock if they want to watch this again and take their time and learn what you just pointed out. Now,
Perfect.
like for me, okay, I don't have the biggest hand, the longest fingers. The middle finger is the longest for me. So, a little bit of that for some of these younger guys, because their hands right now may not be developed, just on them with how they can work and do this as far as grips. But I think the most important thing for both you and I to talk to these younger guys about, and no matter how young they are, they could be a 17-year-old. We're not talking about that they're working on these things live on the rubber, throwing to a catcher every single day as hard as they can. Right, exactly. Give them what you mean by getting used to your grip, feeling, touch and feel, and how you do that.
So like guy Alan Mills that I was talking about before, my pitching coach, the first guy that I had ever met. When I first threw my first bullpen in front of him, I got up on the mound and I was trying to impress him. I was trying to break the catcher's glove. I was trying to throw the ball as hard as I can. And I got out there and I thought I threw pretty well. Like I hit some spots and stuff. He's like, dude, you'll never be able to pitch like that in a full season. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you can't throw that hard all the time. You can't throw 100% all the time. It's literally impossible. No one has ever done it. Everyone does it, gets hurt, or they burn out. They can't do it. So basically the way he taught me to think about pitching is that you want to think about pitching almost like a golf swing. Like when you go to take a golf swing or even a baseball swing. When you go to take a baseball swing, your first swing is never your hardest swing. So it's the same thing with pitching. Like when you go to pitch and you're learning a new pitch, you don't want to throw, like if you're learning a new slider grip, right? You want to go out there with this grip and throw it as hard as you can at 100% because you don't know what the true action on it's going to be. You don't know what the true spin on it's going to be. If you're throwing it at 100%, it could act different when you're throwing it at 100% compared to 60%. So what you want to do is you want to start at 60%, start to get that feel off those fingers, right? And say that's like a sweeper, and like you're a high school guy, that's a sweeper, and that's like whatever, 79 miles an hour, right? You get the feel for it. You're throwing it in flat ground, you get the feel for it, whatever. 2 weeks go by, you get off the mound, you start throwing off the mound, 70%, the same thing, good, and then you add to it. You don't start by your hardest, you always add to whatever you want to do. That's the biggest thing that guys, this is kind of getting into a mechanical thing, but a lot of guys try to throw too hard from their balance point. So if you get up to your balance point, right, and you're already trying to throw hard, you're going to mess up your mechanics when you're going down the slope. You have to let the throw develop, and you have to let your front foot hit the ground before you can accelerate through your target. So developing that throw and being at a 60% or a 50% intensity will allow you to feel those pitches out in front and develop those grips.
The term max effort, that's a great term. And why I say great, it's because exactly what you said. That's what they shouldn't be doing. You're not going out there max effort every pitch, especially when you're working on this. You're honing your craft on grips. Right?
For example, like how many times have you seen a young guy get up on the mound, right? And he's like, first pitch, yanked into the left-handed batter's box as hard as you could throw it. And then I've given so many pitching lessons, and the first thing a guy does, he gets up on the mound. He's like, I want to impress this pitching coach. Like, I'm going to try to throw this as hard as I can. First pitch, yank, right into lefty's batter's box, nowhere near the zone. It's like, I would have been way more impressed with 70% right down the middle at the knees, So it's like a lot of those things guys don't understand. Like when you're working on something, bullpens and stuff, it's not a game. You can treat it like a game situation, but it's not a game. So you can work on stuff. There's not a hitter in the box. Like no one's ever given up a hit in a bullpen, So it's a time to work on stuff.
I've got a couple guys on the call that I know are going to head on and become pitchers in college. I've got a high school coach on the call. I at times, Jimmy, with these calls, I'll just pop a guy's name and say, okay, do you have a so-and-so? You got a question? Just to challenge them a little bit, because we're all baseball rats. We have that passion. We love this game. The knowledge that we get is great. I want to ask, I'm gonna have Danny Frontera come on, so Danny better be ready with a question. But I want to ask you something on pitch calling. There are whether it be whatever level, travel ball, high school ball, college, the pitching coach calling the pitches, the catcher calling the pitches. Where you are right now, obviously you want your catcher to know you, but now you're in a situation where it's the San Diego Padres. You may not have a catcher that's caught you more than one bullpen, So for you, who is it that really makes that decision on what pitches you're going to do and how that plan is made?
Yeah, so obviously earlier on in my earlier on in my career and like playing at CBA and then going to St. Joe's and whatnot, a lot of those times those pitches were called from the coach. You know, they have a game plan set and plan, and they want to call certain pitches in certain situations based off a guy's swing because they know they can read the hitter better than the pitcher can. That's not, I mean, not necessarily in all cases, but in most cases, that's on a younger level. The coach can read players more so than the player can. That's one thing that you have to learn as you get older is about learning how to read a hitter and read players, whether it's on defense, whether it's a hitter reading a pitcher, pitcher reading a hitter. Those are one of those things that separate guys. That's a whole other topic. But it certainly has gotten to a point in my career the past like 2 or 3 years when I've made it to the big leagues that all the pitch calling is falling upon me because it's my job and it's my career. So I mean, if the guy calls a pitch and I don't shake him off and I get a home run on the pitch, and then I come in the dugout and I tell the big league pitching coach that, hey, I didn't want to throw that pitch, but the catcher called it. He's like, well, that's on you. You could have shook him off and threw the pitch you wanted to throw. So I mean, nowadays, like where I'm at in my career, all the pitch calling is on me. But at the younger levels, yeah, I could definitely understand how coaches would want to control the game.
All right, I'm going to call upon Danny. Danny is a junior at Middletown North, class of 2021. He just came off of Tommy John surgery that was over a year ago. He's probably 16 months in full rehab. He was ready to go when scrimmages were ready to start, and everything got shut down. Danny's a fortunate guy who normally will pitch in the upper 80s right now. So he's got to have some kind of questions for a guy that's in your shoes. He may have an opportunity to go beyond high school, obviously college, and hopefully somewhere else. So, Danny, go ahead. What do you have, Danny?
As of right now, I just have 3 pitches, 4-seam, changeup, and curveball. My next pitch is I would want to probably work on a slider. Did you do any drills or anything to help you perfect your slider?
No. I think the biggest thing with the slider is to not try to make it into a breaking ball. So when you throw your slider, I think the biggest thing, especially for you, since you throw a curveball, I'm sure since you're a 4-seam curveball guy, you probably throw high 4-seam and then a curveball off the 4-seam. Right? You try to bury the curveball, high 4-seam. So that's a way different than the way I work. I work like this, 2-seam slider, and then I have like a sweeper. So I mean, you can make something like in between the curveball and the slider, or like in between the cutter, or in between the cutter and curveball, which would be more like a slurvish like slider. But I think the biggest thing for you would be just to make sure you think about it like a fastball, and then just think about it with finger placement. So basically what it is. So say this is your 4-seam, right? That's your 4-seam, right? So then this is your curveball, right? So you hold your curveball like this. And so when you throw your 4-seam, you're coming straight through it like this. See my hand position, just like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is my curveball. See my hand position. So here, say I'm at noon here. Here, say I'm at 6 o'clock. So think about it like a clock. All right. So then a slider would be somewhere in like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. So you want to come through it here. So this is your 4, right? This is your curve, and the slider would be somewhere like in there. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
And then no problem. And then so with your slider too, though, the big thing you're going to notice the most, curveball is so middle finger dominant, right? So when you throw your curveball, it's so middle finger dominant. That's going to give you the depth, right? So, but then when you throw your slider with your pointer, that's going to give you sweep. So you're going to start to realize as you start to like get better with this pitch and find where that arm slot is and find where that release point is, you're going to be able to create depth with this finger, with the middle finger, down like this, and you'll also be able to create sweep with the pointer. That's kind of how Mariano learned his cutter. He kind of just threw a 4-seam like this and just came through it one time and it cut. So it's like a delicate balance of being able to find where you want to be on the clock. It's really all it is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Excellent. Jimmy, would you say in the mental side of it, meaning in your mind as you're working on this, fastball, slider, mentally that I'm throwing it as if it's my fastball until release?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, with the slider, you just want to make sure that like when you throw it and you get it to like that release point, the reason why I think fastball, then slider is because that makes it really consistent. So when I keep it like that, that keeps the spin super consistent on it, so that when the hitter sees that spin, you know what I mean? So if I throw one and I don't think that, and I can say I get here, and I don't think fastball, I think slider, I drop my arm angle or something, and I get around the ball, it's going to completely change the spin on the ball. And the second the hitter sees that come out of my hand, he knows that it's not my good slider, so he can take advantage of it. So being able to think fastball, 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 slider every time and keep those same mechanics is going to keep that consistent spin on the ball and give you that consistent action and consistent shape that you want to do. And then once you get that, then that's when you can start to throw it in different parts of the zone. Then if you get a lefty, you can backdoor it, you can back foot it, you can front door righty. There's all different types of stuff you can do. But once you master the pitch and get the consistent spin and feel for it, then you start throwing it in different spots of the plate. But if you don't have the spin and the consistent spin on it, you're never going to be able to consistently throw it to a certain side of the plate or a certain portion of the zone.
Great demonstration, great explanation of these. I mean, these guys are so lucky to be able to have you on and go over what you're going over with them.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. I love helping people. I love helping people that were in the same shoes that I was. I mean, I wish I had this information when I was the same age as these guys.
Thank you. And obviously, too, you know, you're a Monmouth County guy. You're a short conference guy. So I know you want to pay it forward to all these young guys that are the same here. I'm going to call upon a high school coach, Craig Helfgott's on the call. So I'm hoping he has a question. And if Craig has something maybe about his high school pitchers, too. Craig, you there? There he is.
I'm here. How you doing, Jimmy?
What's up, man?
I'm good. Good. Yeah, actually, I'm always curious to hear, you know, what pitchers have to say about this, especially someone on your level. I know everybody's different, but for you, if you can think back to when you were in high school and college, more specifically, how often did you throw? Whether you were in between starts, if you threw in relief one game, was it the next day you were getting back out and tossing a little bit? Not necessarily long tossing, but what was your throwing schedule like? Because I know a lot of kids these days, whether they're, you know, like to take a day or two off. Some of them like to get back out and throw again the next day, just even, you know, lightly to kind of keep everything, you know, moving a little bit. What are your thoughts on that, and what was your experiences with that as you were, you know, continuing getting older?
Yeah, I mean, as I was growing up, I definitely thought that days after I pitched, definitely think to ramp it back a little less and kind of just, let my body recover more. But then you get to like a certain pocket in your age where you can recover quick. So like, I'd say from the ages of 19 to like 25, I'm 28 now. So 19 to 25, I was able to bounce back quick. So I had days where I would pitch 2 innings in a game and I'd come out the next day and my coach would be like, hey, can you throw? I'd be like, I'd play catch and I'd be like, yeah, I'm good to go. So some days like you're gonna have that pocket of your age where you can bounce back quick. But I'd say for guys at younger levels, like yeah, you might feel good, like, but you're not fully developed yet, so you might feel good the day after you throw. But taking that day or just throwing lightly is gonna help your arm tremendously and help you recover and come back for that next day. Especially in high school and college, because for example, in high school, how many games do you play a week? 3 maybe at most, 2 or 3 games a week.
Yep.
College is the same way. College you can play 4 at most, a midweek, and then 3 on the weekend. So, I mean, in pro ball, you got to pitch every day. So it gets different as you get older and different levels and as your body recovers. So, like now, for example, like if I go and throw up a mound, like I threw up a mound yesterday, today I played light catch like 90 feet just to keep get that blood flow back in my arm and get that recovery starting to go. Like I wasn't going to go out today after going off the mound yesterday and go long toss as far as I can and throw as hard as I can and tear those muscles up again. Because now that I'm older, I've also realized that now that I'm past that pocket of like 19 to 25, it's also taking me a little bit longer now to recover now that I'm older. So there's a fine, delicate balance to it. And I've seen I'm going through the stages of it right now. But I'd say for a younger guy, younger levels, taking a day off definitely doesn't hurt. But if it's a guy, but the thing is, if it's a guy that has trouble repeating his mechanics, those are certain guys that you want to get out there and make sure they're doing whether it's mechanical work and not necessarily throwing and resting that arm, making sure they still get out there and get those reps in so that muscle memory is there, so that when they go to throw again, it's not they're starting from square one.
Right. I think that's a great point. It's not even necessarily getting up on the mound again the next day. Just throwing lightly, doing, you know, mechanical, flat ground stuff with a partner, not even a catcher. It could just be another partner, another infielder. Because obviously a lot of pitchers, I'm sure you did it, you know, where guys are doing both positionally and pitching. So they got to respond a little bit quicker because they might have to go out, you know, back out to second or short or third the next day, you know, depending on how they respond. So Yeah, I was
Absolutely.
curious as to how, what your thoughts were on that. So thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, I mean, dude, I see people all the time in pro ball, wherever it may be, pro ball, even in college. There's guys all the time doing dry work, whether it's off flat ground, whether it's up the mound. Like guys do towel drills, guys do weighted ball drills on the mound. There's all kinds of stuff you can do without actually throwing
that. Right.
to maintain those like mechanics and those body movements.
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. One more thing too for those high school guys and like those guys that are pitchers in high school. This is one thing that I really wish I knew when I was that age was that every throw that you throw, whether you're playing catch or you're off the mound, has intent. So you're not just throwing to get loose. You're not just throwing to throw. You're throwing to repeat mechanics and throwing with intent. That's one of the biggest things. I think every throw has a purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, cool.
Very good question. Very good question. Thank you. I'm going to throw this one out there to you. Here's something a little bit different. And, we're not, obviously, no one really is fortunate to get to every ballpark in America or every minor league ballpark in America. Sometimes it's a good trip for fathers and sons. They make it somehow to as many as they can. But this is a two-folded question on both minor league stadium, minor league city, and then big league stadium, big league city. And when I say stadium, meaning the best one that you like to pitch in as a pitcher, and then also just in general as a person, baseball player, but as a person, that the best town, city in the minor leagues you like to visit or be at, and the same thing in the big leagues.
Okay, so my minor league is it's twofold. So my favorite minor league city would probably be Charlotte, North Carolina. They have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stadium there. If you ever look it up, they're called the Charlotte Knights. It's AAA for the White Sox. Their stadium is sunken down right next to the Panthers Stadium, the Carolina Panthers NFL team, and it's the skyline of the city is in the background of the stadium. So if you ever look up the Charlotte Knights Stadium. It's called BB&T Park, I think. It is one of the most beautiful stadiums, and the city is also awesome too. And then my second but close favorite is the Durham Bulls Athletic Park. It's in North Carolina. That's just a really, really cool, like nostalgic stadium. They always pack it out. They got the high wall left. They really do a good job of promoting the game and making it a good time for fans. So I'd say those two are my favorite minor league stadiums, and Charlotte's my favorite city. My favorite big league city is without a doubt, and like it's New York. It's got to be like Yankee Stadium and all that jazz is just it's unreal. It's a different world playing there. But my favorite Yankee Stadium is my favorite stadium to pitch at, though. That's for sure. My favorite stadium to pitch at probably is just because I had a really good outing there and I have a really good memory. There was Miller Park in Milwaukee, and so in 2017, after I had made my debut, I got sent back down to AAA. I was up for a week, got sent back down, and they called me back up on July 4th in 2017, and they were in Milwaukee, and I was in the bullpen, and Wade Miley had started the game. I think he made it through an inning and a third, and they called me up, and they were like, in the bullpen, they were like, start getting loose. So I start throwing, start getting loose. I go into the game. It's like I want to say it's the bottom of the second or bottom of the third. I go in, I get 2 quick outs, finish the inning, come back in the dugout, and everybody's looking at me, and I'm like looking around, I'm like trying to figure out why everybody's looking at me. They're like, you got a hit. I'm like, got a hit? They're like, yeah, we need you to go like 4 innings. You got a hit. So I'm literally standing in the dugout. I think like the seven holes up at the plate. So I'm up in 2 batters, and I'm sitting in the dugout. I'm just like, wow. The clubby comes up to me, asks me if I need like batting gloves or what do I need. I'm just like, just give me a helmet and a bat. So I just go up there with no BGs on, just a helmet, like one of those big like protective helmets, and no BGs. And I'm standing on deck, and I look over to like the top railing, and Buck Showalter's standing there, and he's like, hey, if the hitter gets on first or second, it was Ruben Tejada. He's like, if he gets on first or second, you're gonna bunt, and then if you get 2 strikes, don't swing. But if he gets on third, swing away. So I'm like, all right, I'm just standing. I don't think any warm-up swings. I'm literally just standing there on deck with the bat on my shoulder. First pitch of the at-bat, Tejada hits a ground ball down the first base line. I'm like, oh no. He rounds first, gets to second base, looks at the third base coach, he's waving him on. He goes diving to third base, lead off triple, or like 1 out triple. So I get up to the plate, and they're like, swing away. So it's a lefty pitcher pitching. It's like a lefty sinker ball. It's like 88, 90. First pitch, ground ball to second, and I score the run. I get the RBI.
Yeah.
And then I went back. I went back out through two more scoreless, and we lost the game, but it was 8-1. And I had the only RBI of the game. So that's why I like Miller Park.
That is a great story. That's a fun story, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, for you to have like a great moment and it's a hitting moment, you know, that's more to it. It's makes it even more fun, you know. You're like, holy cow, what am I gonna do now? You know, that's great.
Yeah. No, yeah, it was awesome. It was a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I always rip one of my college buddies because he's in pro ball too, but he's in AA right now. He hasn't made it up to the big leagues, and I always rip him whenever we talk in the offseason. I'm like, dude, I'm a better hitter than you. I got more big league RBIs. So he gets bent out of shape. I still got that on him. So.
Hey, Travis, I think Travis is on, and he wants to ask you something too. Travis, go ahead, buddy.
Cool.
So when you're doing like your pitching workout, how often do you long toss? Because obviously you don't want to do it every day to like blow out your arm.
Yeah. I think long toss is absolutely huge. I think it's one of the biggest things for not only velo and adding velo and carry on your ball, but I also think it's big on command. Because when you throw from 110 feet away, it allows you to work on your release point and hitting spots. So I think implementing long toss into your throwing program is huge. I would recommend doing it 2 to 3 times a week if you can, like especially in like the heat of the season, just to make sure like you're keeping that elasticity in your arm and you're staying like kind of like that rubber band feel where it's like super whippy. And I think that allows you to build that arm strength. One thing that I think is misconcepted with long toss is that when you go out, you don't necessarily want to throw the ball on a line. So like when you throw long toss, you want to arc it as your guy's going out. So as your partner's going out, you want to arc it as high as you can, and keep arcing. And then as he works his way back in is when you want to start to pro hop and start to pull down on the ball. So as he gets to like 120, 90 feet away, you start to pull down on the ball. That's when you start to create that true spin on the ball and start to get that ride underneath the ball. That's how you'll be able to add velo and add arm strength and stay within yourself with your mechanics.
Great question, Travis. Thank you, buddy. That's a good one to finish up with. Jimmy, thank you so much, pal. I don't know if you realize it's an hour. You've been on the phone with us for an hour talking baseball. Fantastic.
I'm getting hungry.
Getting hungry, but we all are, you know. It's great. Well, your hours, you know, earlier than us. We're at dinner time right now. So I'm gonna ask Billy. Billy, our producer, he does a great job with this. Billy usually will unmute everybody, and the guys are going to want to thank you.
He's an IT guy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.